Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. So let's just get right into it. Have you ever had that feeling, that nagging sense that our whole economy is just kind of built on a house of cards? It's this feeling of instability, right? Like these massive financial crises just keep happening, one after another. So the big question is, why? Is this all just a string of bad luck, or is there something about the system itself that's making this happen? To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to look at a tale of two bank runs. We're going way back to a dramatic moment in British history in 1866, and then fast-forwarding to a more recent one, from 2007. Now, on the surface, they look pretty similar, right? People rushing to get their money out. But trust me, when you look closer, they show us how much our economy has fundamentally changed. And this is where it gets really interesting. Back in 1866, that bank, Overend and Gurney, it went under because it was investing in something real, the country's brand new railway network. Now flash forward to 2007 and you have Northern Rock. It collapsed, not by building anything, but by creating and trading these huge piles of debt, all based on mortgages for houses that were already built. See the difference? One was investing in the real economy, the other was just building this mountain of financial paper. Okay, so this huge shift we're talking about, going from an economy that actually makes stuff to one that's mostly focused on just moving money around, well, it actually has a name. And once you understand it, it's like you unlock the secret to how our modern world really works. And that name is financialization. Now, this isn't just a fancy word for banks getting bigger. No, it's way deeper than that. It's a complete structural change where the logic of the financial world, things like debt, speculation, maximizing shareholder value, starts to take over everything. We're talking about government policy, how companies are run, you name it. Okay, that might still sound a bit abstract. So to really bring this home, let's use a super simple metaphor. It perfectly explains how this whole system gets its fuel and, more importantly, how it actually affects all of us in our daily lives. All right, think about it like this. For a long time, the economy was built on paychecks. Simple, right? Companies paid their workers more, and then those workers went out and spent their income. That spending is what drove demand and grew the economy. But over the last 40 years or so, that whole engine has kind of sputtered out. And what have we replaced it with? Credit cards. We've substituted rising wages with rising debt. And you can see the two models right here, side by side. The paycheck economy, growth is actually linked to the real world, production, wages, things you can touch. But in this new credit card economy, growth is completely dependent on households taking on more and more debt, and on asset bubbles, like the value of our homes going up and up and up. It's a much, much more fragile way to build an economy. So when you make that kind of shift, you end up building a system where financial crises aren't just some unfortunate accident. They're not a bug in the system, they're actually a feature. They become predictable, even inevitable. And you can actually trace this journey through time. Right after World War II, we had the Bretton Woods Agreement, which basically created a really stable global system. Finance was kept on a pretty tight leash. But then, that whole consensus started to fall apart in the 70s. And what came next in the 80s? Massive deregulation. That's when finance was totally unleashed to be the new engine of growth. And, well, that led us straight to the boom and bust cycles that feel so normal to us now. Now, here's the kicker. This didn't just happen by accident. It was a very conscious choice, and it was driven by a huge shift in economic thinking. There's this famous quote from the economist Milton Friedman, who said that only a crisis produces real change. And back in the late 70s and early 80s, when things got rocky, the ideas that were just lying around, as he put it, were all about deregulation, freeing up markets and finance from any kind of government control. And this creates a really dangerous cycle that just keeps repeating. So a debt fuel bubble grows, then it inevitably bursts. What happens next? The financial system gets bailed out with our money, with public money. But for the rest of us, the recovery looks a lot like austerity. Cuts to public services, wages that go nowhere. Basically, the losses get socialized, but the gains stay private. And then the whole system just resets itself, ready for the next boom and bust. So here's the real takeaway. Getting your head around this idea of financialization, it's not just some boring academic thing. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, you start to see the hidden logic behind everything, from why your rent is so high to why certain political decisions get made. This whole perspective, this new way of seeing things, is laid out so powerfully in the book that actually inspired this explainer. It's called Stolen by Grace Blakeley. And her core argument is that this system we have, it wasn't inevitable. It was a political choice. And that means if we built it, we can also unbuild it and replace it with something much more stable and democratic. And that leaves us with a really big, critical question to chew on. If our entire economy is now designed to benefit the world of finance first and foremost, what does that actually mean for the rest of us? What does it mean for real growth, for our stability, and maybe most importantly, for our democracy? For the full, long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description. If you enjoy these explainers, please subscribe and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.